Hello, I'm Colm O'Shea, and you're very welcome to Business and Finance Executive Insights series in association with KPMG, where we talk to business leaders about their insights into success, strategy and overcoming challenges. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Lorna Conn, CEO of CPL Resources. And as some of you may know, Lorna was recently nominated as Business and Finance Person of the Month for April 2023. Lorna, you're very, very welcome, and thank you for joining me here today. I suppose just to start, CPL has been an enormous presence in terms of the people and talent solutions market in Ireland and internationally indeed for a good number of years. Tell me a little bit about CPL and in terms of the essence of what makes it tick.
Thanks, Colm. I'm delighted to be here. So CPL, I suppose I'd describe it as a business that operates right across the talent spectrum. So we operate in specialised recruitment, temp contracting, right the way through to managed services, business process outsourcing, recruitment process outsourcing. So we've been in operation for over 33 years, and we've just evolved the business model over that period of time and into multi-sectors. I don't think there's a single area or sector or value proposition that we can't supply within the talent solutions space, and that's been built on many years of operations.
And look, huge congratulations on your award for April 2023. Just tell me a little bit about, what you see as lying beneath that in terms of strategies that have been effective for you and in terms of why this is being celebrated.
Yeah, I think the biggest focus that I have as CEO is the internationalisation piece around CPL. Ireland is a dominant market for us. We see great opportunity beyond the borders of Ireland, and we've been working very hard to expand our presence, particularly in the UK, in Germany, and in the future into the US. So we made a significant acquisition late last year, or the middle of last year rather, Noista Consulting, and that expanded our service proposition into tech contracting in a new market, which was Germany. I think that was one of the big highlights for us during the year.
But would I be right in saying, and I suppose as I hear you say that, I just hear that ambition in terms of more like what have you got in your mind's eye in terms of where the next frontier is for CPL?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, currently we have around 14,000 staff. We operate in 13 countries. We were acquired by Outsourcing Inc., a Tokyo-listed talent solutions business headquartered in Japan. And through that new ownership, we can lean into a much bigger geographic bandwidth. So they operate in 39 countries. And the beautiful thing about CPL is the quality of our client base. So we partner with many organisations that are multi-jurisdictional. So for us, it's about providing that capability to do more with our clients and operate in locations and regions where we're currently not doing business with those clients. And it comes down to being able to offer a broader skill set.
And you talk about that client list, and it is phenomenally impressive in terms of what's there. And I suppose, how as a company do you mind and nurture and grow and even acquire new relationships? Because I presume that's an absolute critical enabler of the success the business has had.
Absolutely, and I mentioned that we're in operation 33 years, so with that comes a lot of development around client relationships, client nurturing, client partnership, and I think that is absolutely at the core of our business model. We don't look at a client as somebody to make money off. We look at the enduring partnership that we can create with that client. And many of our clients are businesses that have been partners of ours for many, many years, and some of them we have travelled beyond Ireland, and we do more for them in countries in Europe. So they're the type of relationships and partnerships that we're seeking as an organisation, because they're enduring, they're resilient, and we feel that they offer much more value to our client in the longer term. Yeah.
And I suppose you mentioned there the transition from being sort of an independently listed PLC here in Ireland, where you had a phenomenal presence here on the stock exchange, to then becoming part of a global Japanese-led international organisation. Tell us about the changes that brought about, and how has that been to live through?
It was a big change because we delisted as soon as the acquisition completed. So in January 2021, we were no longer an Irish listed organisation. We had to move in under OSI as a privately owned subsidiary. We're one of their largest subsidiaries, so we play a critical part in the overall landscape of the OSI group. What has been really positive about the change is they have no boundaries in terms of their ambition. So they came over to CPL. First of all, they let us do what we needed to do. So they've been very hands-off in terms of the day-to-day management of the business, which we really appreciated because we have a very well-evolved and capable leadership team. So that was really appreciated. But secondly, they came in and they challenged our growth ambitions. And as a listed company, we would clearly have been managing that growth target, I suppose, in the context of shareholders and market expectations. Whereas as a privately owned company in under OSI, which is a much larger organisation, it felt almost liberating to a degree because we weren't bound by any constraints in terms of that vision for growth. If anything, they challenged us to be bigger and to grow larger. And that was the ask of us when we became part of the OSI group. It was to put the boundaries or the constraints in terms of growth to one side and tell us what you can do to double the business in 5 years. And I think as a leadership team, we found that really motivating.
Yeah, I can understand why you say that. And I'm going to come back to leadership team in a moment, but just to talk about the leader for a moment, like you stepped into an enormous pair of shoes, you know, and I suppose if you think about CPL, Anne Herity, as the founder, was synonymous with CPL for so many years, and I think many people might have been daunted by the challenge of taking on, succeeding such a figure. Tell us a little bit about how you felt about that opportunity and any apprehensions you might have had in terms of stepping into those shoes and leading the organisation into the future.
Well, firstly, I suppose it was a very natural progression. When I joined CPL, I joined as the CFO of a publicly listed organisation, and that was my absolute aspiration at that time. I never wanted to be a CEO. I was really happy being kind of a number two into the CEO. And then very quickly, the company just caught my heart and my imagination in a really profound way, and I started to love the organisation. I started to see all the potential. I started to see the opportunities where we could grow and evolve and develop and be a bigger and more successful organisation. So I think that that love, I suppose, galvanised a new desire in me perhaps to one day lead CPL, and I worked very closely with Anne in terms of the succession, and we've got similar leadership styles, so I've always felt that the succession from Anne to me into the CEO role was a very sympathetic one, and it was so organic and so natural that when it happened nobody was surprised. And I think that's the best way a succession plan should be implemented, that you know, it feels like it was always meant to happen, and it happened over a period of time. It certainly wasn't something that we did overnight, but when it happened, it felt so right that I didn't even have any time to have misgivings. I had prepared for it in my mind for so long. The overriding feeling that I had when it happened was joy that I get to lead this incredible organisation.
Yeah, and it's great because you should. I mean, it's an achievement you should be incredibly proud of. But I suppose in terms of how you then bring it forward and your leadership style, and you've mentioned already very generously the strong leadership team you have around you, and I suppose, you know, how do you get that balance right between giving them what they need so that they can perform, but also not micromanaging and not doing their jobs for them, and inspiring them to move forward together?
Yeah, I think every person within an organisation needs that high level of direction set from the top that everybody can work together toward. So what I'm really strong at, I feel, is being able to set the vision and methodically working our way towards that vision, and very regularly updating our teams with transparent updates with respect to progress against that vision. So I think I had a great opportunity because as an incoming CEO, it coincided with a relatively new change of ownership. It coincided with a new 5-year plan that was being implemented across the OSI group. So I was able to come in to that CEO role with a preformed plan that I had been heavily involved in, but I had a plan that I could communicate. So there wasn't a period of time where I, as CEO, was waiting to decide what I needed to do. I had done all of the kind of the homework, I suppose, in terms of where I wanted to bring the organisation as a CEO, and I had a very well thought through articulated plan that lots of people across the organisation made a contribution to. So I think when that was announced, it resonated well with staff, and also it was able to provide that unifying goal, you know, something that we collectively as an organisation can strive toward. And the fact that every month when I meet all of my internal staff on CEO broadcast, I'm able to very openly and honestly tell people how we're progressing against that vision. So it's well articulated, it's clear, and the updates are transparent. And that's the type of leader I like to be. I don't ever really hide the bad news. I like to share the good and the bad and rely on people's levels of maturity that they can take the good news alongside the bad, and obviously vice versa.
And speaking of taking the good news alongside the bad, look, inevitably our economy works in cycles, and things aren't always on the up. And I suppose there's a lot of noise out there in terms of challenges, particularly in the tech sector perhaps at present. And sometimes people can over-egg that in terms of what it really means. Just tell us a little bit about the barometer you have in relation to what's happening out there. I would, in many respects, see your business as a leading indicator in terms of what might be happening out there. But in terms of how you keep a balanced perspective in terms of those cycles that happen in the economy.
Absolutely, and I do think our business is a very natural barometer, let's say, of the health of the broader macro economy. We had an exceptional year in 2022. I'd say many businesses had an exceptional year in 2022 because there was this latency in terms of investment around people, and people had confidence in terms of moving jobs. We were coming out of COVID-19. It was quite a positive environment to be operating in. We saw a bit of a slowdown in the latter end of 2022 into 2023, so the activity isn't as buoyant, let's say, as it was in 2022. And there's a number of factors that we're all very well aware that's contributing toward that. It's the geopolitical tensions, of course, with Ukraine and Russia and other parts of the world. It's inflation, it's energy prices, and all of that fuels a level of uncertainty in the market that doesn't advocate well for staffing, recruitment and managed solutions, because that's a very people-centred business model, and it all comes back to organisations investing in their people. So we've seen a bit of a pause somewhat across a lot of our key markets in response to that uncertainty. But if you look even at the Irish market, the fundamentals of our country are solid. We're at practically zero unemployment. The unemployment rate is a record low at 3.8%. We've just been identified as the second most competitive country in the IMW World Competitiveness rankings. Our economy is obviously performing well. So a lot of those fundamentals are still very positive for businesses operating in Ireland. But that bit of a pause, I think, has probably been due to the fact that organisations have built up a bit of bloat in their cost basis, and obviously the tech businesses have done a lot of right sizing in terms of their people and their headcount and their costs. And I think when a number of large multinationals do that, it does naturally create uncertainty, and it has a bit of a domino effect because other companies start doing it. And I think all of that has kind of fed into the first 3 to 6 months of 2023. But our pipeline is really strong, and we can see that it's building, and our bids and tenders team are as busy as ever. So we see a lot of good positive momentum coming in to the back end of 2023 and into Q1 2024.
And as the leader of an organisation of the scale that you're looking at, how do you maybe make those little corrections to get rid of that little bit of bloat that are proportionate to what's there without an overreaction that sort of stymies the organisation into the future, which is a really delicate balance to strike?
It really is, because what you don't want it to do is be found wanting or lacking in terms of people resources when the economy comes back around and works in your favour. So you want to always make sure that you keep your top talent close to you, and you want to make sure that the decisions that you make around cost don't benefit in the short term to the detriment of the medium to long term. So we take a very balanced view, and for us it's about making those decisions around discretionary spend that we don't really need to grow the business, that we may have encouraged because the P&L has been positive and the numbers have been good. So anywhere where we can discretionarily cut back on costs, we do that. In terms of people headcount, our business can be challenging, but equally it can be self-regulating. So when people aren't selling and they're not feeling good in their role, often they make a decision themselves personally to move into a new role elsewhere. So we've got that little lever in terms of the costs that can work in our favour sometimes in a downturn. But I think that the problem statement that I've shared with our team is that, look, things are a little bit challenging right now in the market, so we all need to be sensible in terms of how we allocate our spend and how we prioritise our costs, and that's what we're doing as a collective.
And maybe to flip it around to the positive, because you mentioned in particular unemployment being at that record low 3.8%, and a lot of the Exchequer statistics recently, would suggest that there's almost an embarrassment of riches in terms of what is there. So, I suppose, we can get caught up in the negative news, but in terms of where you see opportunities over the next short and medium term horizon, where do you see those critical opportunities, and what are you forging ahead towards?
Yeah, the opportunities for Ireland, I think, if they could just continue to, or the government rather, could try and solve some of the thorny infrastructure issues. I think that could be a real enabler in terms of inward investment into Ireland, and making it a very attractive place for companies and for people to relocate and work and live in amongst our very progressive society. I think on a personal level for CPL, we always see opportunities in Ireland. It's our mother market per se, but because we have such a dominant presence already in Ireland, the big opportunities for us we would see internationally. And as I mentioned, the focus is the UK, Germany, the US. We intend to acquire in the US, and it should be an asset of substance. It's a stated objective of our parent company, Outsourcing Inc., that they would like to acquire in the US, and they've already stated that CPL will be the vehicle through which they enter that market. So that's a really exciting opportunity for us when the time is right, when the asset is right, and crucially when the leadership team is right, because I think at the end of the day, that's what we trade in, is our people, and it's the calibre of the leadership team that we acquire will make or break a deal.
I'm hearing transformative acquisition on the horizon, but I won't pin you down any further. Lorna,
potentially.
Lorna's been amazing to talk to you, and thank you so much for the generosity with your time and with your insights. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you today. You're very welcome. Thank you, Colin. And thank you to you for joining us today on Business and Finance Executive Insight Series in association with KPMG.